So this evening, Venerable Ajahn Anan answered 3 different questions. The first question being, why and for what are we here? So in terms of why, this is something that I've addressed already, in terms of there's a cause, birth has a cause. It's based on causes and conditions. This Kamma, that's the support. So whether we do wholesome Kamma or unwholesome Kamma, we receive the result of that. We're born according to our Kamma, we abide supported by the Kamma. Future is born from our Kamma, companion to our Kamma, and its results are our home. So wherever we're born, it's according to our Kamma, and our Kamma follows its results, its vipaka. So whatever action of body, speech, and mind we do, that's our Kamma. And the vipaka Kamma, the result of the Kamma, is the kilesa, defilement arising, which then leads to the creation of more Kamma. So it cycles like that. Then the mind cycles in samsara, in the cycle of birth and death. So we practice and train to abandon Kamma, to abandon defilement, to abandon birth, to abandon attachment. And if there is no Kamma, then there's no vipaka, no result. This is abandoning the sense of self, to abandon the defilement, to reduce the number of lifetimes left. And so we practice to live heedfully, because usually we live with the quality of delusion or ignorance, but we practice to cultivate mindfulness and wisdom, to have clear knowing. And we see, why are we here? It's because of Kamma and the results of Kamma. This leads us to cycle through samsara, to experience aging, sickness, and death. So we practice to cultivate mindfulness and wisdom. So next question, how to reduce the amount of sleep, or does it come naturally? So to reduce the amount of sleep, we need to train and practice. We practice to rest the right amount, to make it just right. So we practice to sleep enough to eat the right amount as well, to eat in a way that's just right, and to awaken with effort, with energy. And so we practice to know the right amount to eat. If we eat a lot, then we'll feel sleepy. Just like the king in the time of the Buddha, he had eaten too much, and the Buddha taught him to know the proper amount to eat. And the Buddha taught a verse about this, about not eating too much. And the king was able to recall that, and then he reduced the amount he ate to not eat too much. So in terms of eating, we practice to know the right amount. And we also see in terms of sleep, if we sleep a lot, then we'll feel drowsy. So we try to make it just right. And as we age, the amount of sleep we need could change as well as the body degrades. So whatever the case, we practice to make the amount of sleep just right. And we can reduce the amount of sleep as well, like this. So we need to train, and we can train by not sleeping sometimes, or sleeping less. And in this way we can get to know what the right amount is. For instance, some nights during the practice of not sleeping, not lying down on some occasions, and this is training the mind to have more mindfulness and wisdom, to have more patient endurance, to fight with sleepiness, not to give in to it. And this is a way of practice that's more strict. That's the way of practice of the noble ones. So the last question, how does one relate to the bhavanga stream in daily practice? So this bhavanga, the bhava, is like a place or a state, a place to become. And It's a quality that we all experience in the mind, or it's a state that we all experience, this bhavanga. So when the six senses arise, like an ear hearing a sound, or eye seeing a form, then the consciousness that is intentional or directed will know that, see it arise and cease. And this bhavanga, that's a still, it arises and ceases as well. It arises and ceases, arises and ceases. And so we see that the citta, or the mind, has arising and ceasing like this. And so it's not self, because it's arising and ceasing all the time. So we take a look at the original mind, the mind in the beginning. This is the mind that's not receiving sense impressions. We call it mano, or citta, or the mind. And then when proliferation arises based on sense contact, and then sense consciousness arises. We can call this mano vijnana. It's part of the 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates. It's the element of sense consciousness. But the original mind is still without thinking, and then it receives these sense impressions and proliferates based on them. Then the defilements arise there. So this directed mind, this is the directed mind, and then there's the original mind, or bhavanga mind, that's still. Then the directed mind follows the kilesas. And then these actions that we do, they go deep into the bhavanga citta and become latent tendencies, or deep tendencies of the mind, whether good or bad. So it cultivates these habits like that. And if this habit is cultivated a lot, then it becomes a latent tendency. And so we set our hearts on the practice and training, for instance, to sit in meditation. So this is building a good habit, building a good tendency. So we train the mind like this in our daily life. So this is building a positive latent tendencies in the mind, building positive latent tendencies in the bhavanga citta.